Hi, I'm Wayne Allen Root for Personal Liberty. Last week, U.S. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid called Patriots domestic terrorists. Isn't that amazing? He actually went there. He used the term to describe anyone who thinks the raid at the Bundy Ranch in Nevada was government overreach and intimidation, just like I do. You mean sending 200 heavily armed troops, snipers, helicopters, airplanes, and rendering trucks isn't government overreach? Isn't that strange? Well, actually, no. It makes perfect sense. Obama's supporters, like Harry Reid, have learned well about demonization, intimidation, slander, and vicious attacks on their opponents. Obama's mentor, community organizer, Saul Alinsky, taught his followers that ridicule is man's most potent weapon. He defined political opponents, meaning conservatives, as the enemy. He advised, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Alinsky's strategy was to attack, and attack some more. He advised his Marxist followers to demonize your opponent with exactly what you see in the mirror. In other words, if you look in the mirror and you're the radical, call your opponent radical. If you look in the mirror and you're extreme, call your opponent extreme. If you're the domestic terrorist, call them the domestic terrorist. That's how you distract and deflect, by spreading misinformation. That's how you take the spotlight off your radical views, by painting the other guy as radical. So calling conservatives who want to defend the Constitution by the name domestic terrorists makes perfect sense, because Senator Harry Reid is looking right in the mirror. The facts of just the last few days have proven that Obama and Harry Reid, the man who carries Obama's water in the U.S. Senate, and their entire Marxist cabal are the real domestic terrorists. That's why they chose the very words that describe themselves, to distract, deflect, and cover their tracks. Just look at the results of Obama's policies, all voted into place by Harry Reid as the U.S. Senate Majority Leader. More Americans are now on food stamps than the total number of women working in all of America. The number of full-time working Americans in the private sector is about 70% lower, 7-0, than the number of Americans who get government checks. 86 million in the private sector working, 148 million get government checks. That's a 70% discrepancy. Aren't these statistics the definition of domestic terrorism? How did this happen? This administration put in place more regulations than any administration in history. Last year alone, Obama set the all-time record with 26,000 plus pages of new federal regulations. Obama now owns 4 of the 5 highest regulation years in the history of the presidency. And then there's the dollar cost of those regulations. In just 1 year, 2012, Obama's new regulations cost more than all the regulations of Clinton and Bush's entire first terms combined. How about the cost for Obamacare regulations? Americans Action Forum reports that Obamacare imposes 645 million hours of paperwork, over 4,000 federal forms, and over $35 billion in costs. Is there any wonder the economy is a disaster? Is there any wonder why there are no jobs? Obama's placed more handcuffs on the job creators and more roadblocks in front of small business than any president in history combined. Isn't this the definition of domestic terrorism? But wait, as infomercial pitchmen often say, there's more. It was just revealed that Obama proposed 442 new taxes in his first 5 years. Yes, I said 442. Forget what this administration actually passed. Thank goodness Obama had a Republican Congress standing in his way. But can you imagine if Obama had gotten what he wanted? We'd have 442 additional taxes. Tax rates would be in the 80 to 90% range. That's as high as any socialist or communist economy in the world. France is run by a socialist party president, and its highest tax rate is 75%. Then there's Obama's EPA. The EPA is trying desperately to regulate coal producers out of business, and the EPA also just announced sweeping new clean water regulations that put the government in control of virtually every piece of land in America that has a ditch or a pothole on it. If it's an indentation and it collects water, then your land is under EPA control, not yours. Isn't that the definition of domestic terrorism? Then there's the government intimidation. The IRS scandal grows bigger by the day. Now it turns out that IRS officials like Lois Lerner were openly consulting with the Department of Justice about how to target Obama's political opposition. This same IRS is tracking our license plates on highways across America with new software. This same IRS has requested donor lists of the conservative Hollywood organization Friends of Abe, and now the Ron Paul organization Campaign for Liberty. Now I ask you, why would the government want confidential donor lists of conservative organizations? There's only one reason: to conduct a witch hunt to intimidate, bankrupt, and destroy their political opposition. Isn't that the very definition of domestic terrorism? Yes, Harry Reid's right. We do indeed have domestic terrorists in America, but it's certainly not Tea Party conservatives. By definition, it's the group that wants a different kind of America, that wants to fundamentally change America, that wants to undo what the Founding Fathers created, that wants to violate the Constitution and kill capitalism. That's the definition of domestic terrorism. That group resides in the White House. They control the U.S. Senate. They run the Democratic Party. Now you understand why Obama, Harry Reid, and their Marxist cabal call others by nasty names. This is the Saul Alinsky playbook. I'm Wayne Allyn Root for Personal Liberty. See you next week. God bless America.